Hey everybody, this is another free tutorial by Mold3D, and this is Robert doing a demo on how to shell or hollow out your model. And I first want to thank Giovanni Nakpil for giving us this awesome kaiju sculpture that he did, and it's going to be a great demo for us today. When I was handed this model from Gio, it was basically a single-sided surface, and it was up to me to prepare this model so that it had thickness in the first place, and also try to cut down any extra resin that might be used. So I'm going to just jump ahead to the final thing just to show you the kind of savings that you can expect. This one here is would be a completely solid model, and you can see that the backing here is covered on the back. We're looking at about 131 milliliters of resin, and it's quite a bit. It's not a huge amount, but the cool thing about printing hollow is actually it's a lot less stressful on your printer in general. So I have adopted to print hollow almost as much as possible, especially when printing larger things. So this is an example of looking at what I did for my hollow mesh, and I'm going to show you how to do this pretty easily in ZBrush. So you can see there's the hole in the back. It goes all the way up. There is no hole down the arms, and I'll explain later why I do that. The savings is it's almost half. It really depends on how thick you make this wall, but you can get about 50% savings with your models, and that's actually, it adds up over time a lot, so something I highly recommend doing. So first of all, let's go ahead and take a pass on cleaning this model up real fast. So I wanted to mount this model to be kind of like a deer head. We have a back plate that's going to be on the back end here. So some of these things I need to clean up in terms of having these edges come and be straight. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for you right now. So let's turn on symmetry, and we're going to have to mask this out real fast. Over to our mask lasso. So and just simply move some of these items back. So this way when we cap the surface you get a kind of a nice straight line. And just pull that out just enough so that we can cut it here. And this model is not perfectly symmetrical, so it looks like I masked that a little bit. Alrighty, here we go. So pull this down, get that going, and tap it with the smooth a little bit. Alright, so that's probably pretty good. Some more here. And if you want, you can turn on topological, just in case if you don't want to accidentally grab any of this top surface here with the move tool. It goes a bit slower when you have a dense model, so I tend to keep it off when I can. But topological moving can be pretty helpful, especially when you're dealing with surfaces that are close to each other. Alright, and that should be fine. Clear that mask, and let's see what we got here. So looks like I need to bring this down. I don't think I need topological here. And just giving myself an extra little bit of room for when I clip off the surface. Alright, so let's line that up. And make sure perspective is off for this kind of operation. It helps a lot. It makes things slice perfectly straight. If you have perspective on, you'll get an angle. So turn off perspective. And for this one, I'm going to, I think I'm just going to use my mask, select rectangle there, and just get in there enough to where we can get a clean line. So let's check out what we hid. And it looks like I need to pull the center just down a little bit more. So, and actually pull these together. hate doing this because this is Geo's model, but a little bit of, you try to maintain some of their form without destroying too much. So just continue some of those shapes back. And let's see. Let's just clip off a little higher. And something like that. So that looks pretty good. Alright, so we got a nice clean straight line all the way around the back here. And that'll give us a wall in the back to work with, especially when we go to mount this to any other piece of base, I guess. Alright, so I'm going to go over here to the Geometry tab and delete Hidden under the Modified Topology. Delete Hidden. And then I got to make sure I have no subdivision levels at this point, so I delete my lower subdivision levels, and then I delete Hidden. And now you can see we don't have any. We don't have any. Oop! I just dynameshed it. Yeah, I guess I had that on already for some reason. All right, so now we don't have any other geometry hidden. So now we're able to freely, actually now that we can freely dynamesh this model. So when dealing with really dense meshes like this, I like to save progress. So I'll just save out that tool. This way, in case I blow ZBrush up, there's always a point where I last left off that's not too far away. Alright, so let's go to the Dynamesh and let's just try something conservative like 1024 and just run it. And yeah, looks like it preserves a lot of the detail. Probably can go a little bit higher. Sometimes you can just undo and redo so you can see. So it's not too much detail loss. I might try to pump it up just a bit more. So maybe 1200. I found kind of 1200 to be a sweet spot for a lot of these kind of really highly detailed creatures. If you just go right to the 2048, you'll end up blowing up your ZBrush a lot. So, alright, so that's 1200. It's probably pretty good. And what is our poly count here? So you can always check your poly count by going and hovering over the model. So we're at what is that? 1.1 million. So that's actually not bad. We're actually going to be exporting out about 1 million. So I can choose to put this number higher and maybe get to about 4 million. But we're also not considering the fact that we're going to have a whole entire inner surface as well. So I'm probably going to be able, just for the sake of the speed of the demo, I'm also just going to not push it too far and keep it at about 1 million here. So alright, let's go ahead and hollow this object out now. So some of the benefits with hollowing in ZBrush are that it's easy. You have a lot of control, and it's generally fast. You can do it with really dense models, really organic objects. You can choose what and what not to hollow depending on how thin the object is. And I'm going to be showing you the manual method of hollowing this time, and then I'll show you more of an automatic hollowing method. And it's kind of up to you to choose which is a better fit for the application. The non-automatic version is in the Dynamesh, and it's the create shell. And I'll show you that method in a later video. So let's get started. We're going to go ahead and duplicate this mesh. So we have 2 to work with, and I'm going to throw on transparent here. So I'm going to go ahead and select the one I just duplicated, and I'm going to go right down to the geometry in the Dynamesh and crank this all the way down to something really low, like 50, and then just re-Dynamesh it. So now we probably have a really low res version of that model. There we go. Alright, so now we have a super low res version of it, and I'm going to throw on the other one so you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. So what we're going to do is use this new lower res version to extract out the inner shape based upon our existing shape. So for this model, I didn't want to hollow out the arms. We actually probably do it a little bit, go into maybe the bicep a little bit, but when it gets down to here, I really want that strength in the print in general. So I'm going to keep a lot of this. So my technique is to just hide and delete. So and I have mirror on right now. I'll probably have to turn that off since his arms are asymmetrical. And That's the mask. If you ever draw the wrong thing, if you hold spacebar, you can move it out of the way and redrop it. And same thing, if you draw a lasso, you can actually move it post and then move it to where you do want it. And then if you can control, you can switch back over to your hide selection. So that's pretty good. All right. And same thing with these horns. I don't really care to make them hollow either, so I'm gonna clip out these things. And same with these longer ones here. So anything I don't want to sort of be a hollow shape or a negative shape inside of our model, I'm gonna just get rid of right now. So, all right, once I go and looks like I missed one. All right, and you don't have to be too exact. We're gonna really we're gonna deflate the shape of this a lot, so all these are gonna go in. So that's pretty good. All right, and actually, I might just, for the sake of time, hide these pieces here. All right. Alrighty, so geometry and modify topology and delete hidden. I'm going to redraw my Dynamesh, and if it's still turned on, is it still done? Let's see. Alrighty. Yep, turn it on. And now we just start smoothing. So just make a big brush and just smooth this down a little bit, and maybe redraw it, smooth it down, and see how our shape is doing. So it's pretty good. Alright, so now when you have a nice smooth shape, this will respond a lot better when you use the deformation and then you reverse inflate your model. If you have too many really hard edges, you're going to get a lot of inverse balloon or overlapping going on. So let's just go ahead and deflate this model. You can see right here we're starting to get a little bit, so I'll stop and then just redynamesh it there, and then maybe hit it with the smooth. And then looks like I left a little piece of horn here, so I'm gonna delete that and jump up. If you hit Control Shift, you can open up two tabs and not have to open them up over and over again. So if you're jumping between two menus, you can permanently keep these two open for a while. Alright, so I'm gonna delete hidden and then redynamesh that and smooth it. And so there's the arm. And at this point, it's kind of actually just a manual sculpting process. Inflate where you feel like you want to save a little bit more resin. So I'm gonna punch up these little shapes here, maybe bring that back down, and just kind of keep them in the center. All right, that's looking pretty good. All right, so you can kind of see our general wall thickness is about this this thick here. So one of the big downsides with doing this process in ZBrush is you don't have direct control of your wall size. So what that means is if you print this model, 12 inches, that wall thickness will probably be about an inch. And so that's actually quite thick. Adversely, if you print this model at 1 inch, that wall thickness could be really thin, almost too thin to print on your printer. So when you're dealing with wall thicknesses, you had to be kind of careful in that sense. And so let's continue. I'm going to go and pull this outer edge all the way out because we're going to use this to Boolean. So let's see, look at my mask tool, mask lasso, I want to be mask rect. All right, so masking out this part. And then I'm going to drop my transpose. If you just click on the surface, you'll have it go out the normal automatically. And then as opposed to drawing, you can draw it at a weird angle. So if you just tap, you'll get the surface normal for your transpose. And then I'm going to just move that out. So it just sticks out here. So these are the areas that you really have to watch out for. Anytime you have a really deep crevice, the inflate tools don't really work too well in those areas. So I'm going to clear my mask, redynamesh, and then turn on my mirror. And then I'm just going to make sure that these areas are clear. And I'm going to actually pull these up a little bit. So make sure we're just really clear of that little divot right there. I've actually printed a model where it was a hole there and it did fail on me. So, you know, you try to avoid stuff like that as much as possible. That said, you know, 3D printing is still an evolving art form, and things that you need to do for printing are are um, are an ongoing learning process. Alright, so that's pretty good. I'm going to pull this one particular side in a little bit more. When we print this object, if you create a big hole in this thing, what you're going to end up doing is possibly creating a huge air pocket. So pressure could build up inside the print while it's printing and actually push out or make a cause a hole to appear in your model. And some of my earlier failures of 3D printing, I did this a lot and I had no idea why. So what we're going to do is actually give those give this actually 2 more holes, and so there's no one area that that an air pocket can form and build up. And so this comes down to being a little bit creative. So I want to do this in a way that doesn't disrupt the design but still achieves my goals. So with this guy, he has kind of 2 nostrils here. So I'm going to actually make those actual holes in the print. So go back into transparent mode, and I'm going to go to my move and kind of get an alignment here. And if you hold Alt, it'll move it out on the normal. So just kind of go like this. Alright, so now we kind of have that, and I want a little bit more resolution because I want to have a nice circle in there that kind of matches the shape. So I'm going to up the resolution of this Dynamesh. Geometry. So draw that. So now we got a little bit more geometry inside to work with, and I'm going to do that same thing. So I'm going to just pull this out here. And alrighty. So the time savings and the print material savings on hollowing your mesh is quite significant when you start dealing with prints that are 5 to 6 inches in height, or if they happen to be really thick or wide characters. It's pretty important to do. Alrighty, so we got that. This is looking pretty good. Okay, I'm going to hide my sculpture here and just look at our Dynamesh real fast. So this shape here might cause an air pocket to appear down there, so I'm going to just pull this back a little bit, flatten that, so this way this is our leading shape here. These typically will be okay for this kind of thing. Depending on how we orient the model, that shouldn't be a problem. So we're going to risk it for this one. So let's go ahead and do that and turn our model back on. All right, now here's the fun part. Let's go ahead and clip it and see what happens. So at this point, I always want to save another copy. So Kaiji1, sure. And to clip out this model, we're going to go to first of all, we're going to turn on make sure the object is one whole polygroup, so Control W, and he should be one polygroup now. And same thing with this one, Control W. Alright, so now we got that. So we're going to go to the top mesh, and then we're going to turn on the half moon on the mesh below it, and go down here to merge, and then merge down. And undo operation. Yeah, this is why we save before doing this, because you can undo the Dynamesh in the clipping, but then you have to also separate the model again. So it's easier to just open up the subtool and go back to where you were. So and hit OK. So we merge down, and now we are going to go to Geometry tab, and the Dynamesh is already turned on, and I'm going to just draw it, and let's see what happens. Cool. All right, so there we go. We got our hold mesh. We're going to check it out. So make sure we maintain the essence of the character. So we have 2 nostrils here. That turned out pretty great. You might go inside and hit the edge, which is a little smooth if you need to. Make sure it's like not too sharp, I guess, what have you. But for the purpose of this demo, I think it's pretty successful. We didn't clip through the back of the shape here. The wall is a decent thickness. It probably could be a little thinner if we wanted to spend more time on it. And we even got a little bit more savings into the arms as well. So that's great. And when you do it this way, you also get a polygrid for the inside. So if you did want to have to modify this shape a little bit, and maybe you want to push it a little bit closer to the edges inside, you can. Now the downside of working that method is the transparency is not going to work for you, so you can't really see like the inside of the outside area, so you do have to hide, and then you can actually see the cross section here. So we can see where we got a pretty good shell all the way around. Thank you everybody for joining us for this free tutorial. Hopefully it was useful for you, and definitely want to shout out and say thank you to Geo for letting us use this model for the demo. Please subscribe to our Facebook, Twitter, and our newsletter on our website. And this is Mold3D, and we'll catch you next time.